Well, good morning everybody, thank you for coming. Those who don't know me, my name is Phil, that's all you're getting out of me.
That's not enough.
I've got to say, in today's society, I have to start this off by saying I am not an expert in this. I encourage you to do your own research and educate yourselves. That's how I've got to this place now. This is a subject which is obviously very prevalent at the moment, and we could sit here and talk all day on different areas, different aspects. I've got an hour, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover basically 3 or 4 main points towards the end. I also suggest that you maybe have a pen and paper, because there's a couple of things you might want to write down that I haven't got on handouts or anything. So a little bit of background about myself, so that you have a better understanding of why I'm here and giving you this little chat. Basically, from being an infant, the conditioning begins. Most of you know that. From every angle, you're squashed into a belief that most authority figures in our lives have our health and well-being at the foremost of their minds when they're creating something, when they're wanting us to obey the law, to respect authority, respect your bosses, respect your parents, etc., police, etc., etc. Now, because I couldn't get enough conditioning, when I left school, I went straight into the military. Way to go, more brainwashing, eh? So it's a great place to learn to do as you're told, and so I was able to double down on some more serious brainwashing. Good stuff. 6 years in, I decided I'd have enough people telling me what to do, and I thought it was time I turned the tables and I was able to tell people what to do. It's a lot better place to be, trust me. So I swapped from being a mechanic into the military police. Life was so much better. Decisions on things that were going to happen were made by a group, and we made the decision, then we went out and did it. There was none of this, you know, a voice over your shoulder shouting, got to do this, got to do that, got to do that. It was a group discussion which was very enlightening, and it was all handled in a calm and courteous manner, which was great. Decisions made, problems solved. Life was only black and white. Okay, this is very important for my story. Life was only black and white, there was no grey. And I carried that into my public life later on when I left the military. While in the military police, wherever I was, we worked very closely with the local police. And it was there that I got my first glimpse of another way to get things done. And this is where it all began. How to use words to get people to do your bidding. How to lead people along until you arrive at the solution you want them to arrive at. I left the military 7 years after swapping over to be a policeman, because I sensed something was going on and something was going wrong, and I didn't want to be a part of it. So I came to Oz and did what was expected. I worked, paid taxes, did the right thing, mostly. Obeyed what I thought was the law until 2013. That year my wife and I realised that it didn't seem to matter how hard we worked or how much money we saved or where we put it, how we tried to work with it. Our level of comfort didn't seem to go up. And there never seemed to be enough. It felt like we came last when dividing up everything in the money's areas. So that was the year I began to do research on banks and money. 18 months later, we got rid of $120,000 worth of credit card, personal loans, and other loans. How, I hear you ask. I learned where the money comes from. Some of you may know where the money comes from. You become in charge of your money, not the banks. Because there's one question that they cannot answer, and if one bank answered it, this whole monetary system would collapse overnight. We're not here to talk about money, I'm just telling you this is how my journey into doing research and understanding started. And somewhere around that time, I got a parking ticket from down at the wharf in Cairns. More research. I discovered that councils have no authority to issue fines whatsoever. Nothing at all, anywhere. And once again I hear you say, how? How many people were around in 1988 for the referendum in changes on the Australian Constitution? Not too many hands, not too many hands. So in 1988, there was a constitutional referendum on whether to amend the Australian Constitution to give powers to the local government similar to federal and state. The people said no. So that left local councils with absolutely no authority whatsoever. They can threaten to take you to court, they can take you to court, it gets thrown out. Provided you have the right words to argue your case. And this is where learning, educating yourself starts to really work for you. I haven't paid a local fine since, by the way. Next there came mobile cameras, red light cameras, fixed cameras, radar guns. Haven't had many, but the ones that I have got haven't paid. Why? Because it's all illegal. For those of you who don't know, the police are a private corporation and they do not have the authority to issue you fines for these speeding, alleged speeding things. But we're conditioned, it's that conditioning that we got into. We're conditioned to pay. We're conditioned not to have debts, aren't we? From this age, or when we started getting our first job, mum and dad, you pay your debts. You get that car, $2,000, you pay your debts. The banks, yeah, if you've got a credit card, you've got to pay your credit card, you've got to pay your debts. It's pushed into us all the time. Anybody, tell you a little story which I've used a couple of times is there's this particular species of crab that when they're caught they put them in the big barrels, you know, half full of water, throw them in there, they're swimming around. Every now and again, and I saw a video of this, a crab will reach out and he'll grab the lid and he'll start to pull himself up on one arm. All of a sudden, all the other crabs that have been lying there doing nothing rush over, grab it and pull it back in. Does that sound familiar to things that have happened in your life? Whenever you want to do something different, I had to do something. I had to take action. So about 9 months ago I began posting about laws that I'd found that stated it was illegal to do some of the things that were happening. It shouldn't be allowed. Why is it being allowed? It's one of the biggest questions I've had. More research revealed that the level of corruption in our judicial system is amazing, which made me realise that the only way to stop all this is by people power. And I don't mean, even though it's a very important part, millions of people walking down the streets protesting, fabulous. But I could probably guarantee you that only 1 in 1,000 actually knows their rights in that march. All right, now one of the examples I'm going to talk about, we'll take an example from a march, which is a very common example, and I'll maybe ask what people's thoughts are, what they would do in that situation. So that moment about 6 months ago was when I decided to do all I could to help educate people about their rights, because, and I say this a lot, if you don't know your rights, you don't have any. Does everybody get that? When I asked at the meeting a couple of weeks ago how many people didn't know their rights, 80% of the people there put their hands up, and that scared me. It really did. Given the current pandemic, with its restrictions, suggestions, directions that change almost daily, and people are not law, we will discuss what I believe to be the most common fall. So let's start with masks. Glad to see nobody's wearing one. Fabulous. The amount of people walking on the street, open air. We were going shopping the other day, pulled out onto the highway, car came up behind me, looked in the mirror, a guy on his own, in his car with a mask on. Yeah, good on you. That's the way to be. I don't either. Alright, now, They're great for providing the spread of bacterial diseases. That's why surgeons wear them. So when they drool on the patient, it doesn't drop into the open wound they're working on. Yeah, it stops bacteria. However, 50 years of usage in science proves this, and also the fact that they are totally ineffective for preventing the spread of a viral disease. So why do a certain percentage keep complying? And that percentage can depend on what you've seen, what you've heard. You know, they say we're 90% vaccinated. Meh. You know, it's a bit iffy. There was I watched something this morning, a Superior Court judge in America, which was really annoying. She did not have any of her facts right. She said there were 100,000 children with Omicron dying in hospitals. And very quickly she was smashed down for that. But it's that type of stuff that keeps this divide getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So you've got to know your rights. Now, so why do certain people keep complying? Because the majority are unconsciously scared of confrontation. Now, I know this because I'm a trained counsellor. My wife and I ran our own business for 10 years. So understanding how people think, behave, etc. is something that I did for a long time. And I stopped because I realised I needed a bit of help first. All right, and people don't want to feel different from everybody else, so they just wear it to feel good about themselves and to think that everybody else around them is patting them on the back and saying, well done, you wore your mask. Because, I mean, I've experienced it myself. I've walked and people go. Initially it used to kind of scare me a little bit, I'd just kind of ignore it. But there is that reaction there. And for a lot of people, that's what they're trying to avoid. So I understand about confrontation. The easiest way to avoid having to wear a mask is to reply when somebody questions you, I have a medical exemption, and walk on. Don't stop. I have a medical exemption, walk on. Okay? The Chief Health Officer, and there's a lot of other stuff, but the Chief Health Officer of Queensland, many months ago, can't remember when it was, made it clear, and this was on a video which I've got, and a lot of other people have probably still got, made it clear that medical exemptions were allowed and that there was no requirement to provide proof of that or to say what type of exemption, because your private medical information is for you and your doctor only. Nobody apart from a duly authorised biosecurity officer, and he will have a card which is duly signed by the state's chief medical officer that he is an authorised biosecurity. All these people who come to your house saying, oh, is Joe there, we're going to give him a jab. They're just some people have dragged from some back office and said go out and stab people. Right, so your private medical information is for you and your doctor, no one else needs to know. Alright, that's clear, everybody's clear on masks. There's a lot of other things you can do, but the easiest one to avoid the confrontation is to say, I have a medical exemption, and keep walking. If you say, I have a medical exemption and then stop, that person's going to start asking you more questions, etc. I have a medical exemption and walk on. I've noticed actually that a lot of places that have the mask mandate for going in don't even question you anymore. So the word is spreading, which is really good. Example 2. You're at a protest march when a couple of police approach you and start asking who you are, where you're going, where have you been, where do you live, how many kids you got, when was the last time you had a drink, all this kind of stuff, and show us your ID. Okay, fairly common. Anybody been in a march that's experienced that? Let's take some feedback from the crowd. How would you handle that? Anybody? Silence. Okay.
Ask why.
Ask why. Ask why of what?
Why they want to know.
Why they want to know.
Why. Just that one word. Why.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. So basically, what a lot of people who have, and please don't take this the wrong way, because I could still put myself in this category. If you don't know your rights, you can get yourself into trouble. All right. If a policeman comes up to you at a march or anywhere on the street, all right, you reply. Write this down. I did say get a piece of paper, write this down. It'll be apparently on Kuranda TV. So if you know where Kuranda TV is and you can get that, watch it up when it goes up and get these words. Under the Supreme Court ruling.
Excuse me, can you say it again?
Under the Supreme Court ruling. Under the Supreme Court ruling. DPP, which stands for Director of Public Prosecutions, versus Hamilton. This is what you have to say. Under the Supreme Court ruling, DPP versus Hamilton, I do not have to stop and talk to you or show an ID unless I'm under arrest. Am I under arrest? They will say no. And then you say, then I'll be on my way, and you start to move. Okay? They will probably continue to question you and get in your face. They will stand in your way. They will berate you with questions. The reason I know this is because this is how I was trained in the military police when we worked with the local police. There's ways to get people to spill the beans so that you can get them on something else. And that's all they're looking for. They're looking for you to say something that they can then go, oh, you were down that street. So what happened? Did you see what happened down there? Then all of a sudden, you're walking along the street and now you're a person of interest. Do you get what I'm trying to say? Fact checkers, please fact check me.
Real fact checking.
All right. So you've stopped you. You've given them the spiel. They're going to keep asking you questions. Every time they finish a question, you feel like it's a break. Say, "Am I under arrest?" Then I will be on my way. And just try and keep me whichever direction. There's a policeman there. Go that way. The policeman there. Go that way. Just try and move. All right. Do not lose your temper. Do not. And the lady who said it, say you're a corporation, I'm not going to contract with you. That'll just piss them off. All right, and they will find something else. You've got to stay calm. You've just got to keep repeating, am I under arrest? And they can't say yes. All right. When they ask for ID, you say, I am not required to carry ID, so I don't have any to provide you. Right? The only time you have to carry ID is if you're in your car. Okay, that's law. If you're in your car, you've got to have your ID with you. Driver's license is what we're talking about, driver's license. Right? Because if they pull you over, you've already committed an offence. Be it a broken light, broken headlight, you went round a corner the wrong way, something. They've already got you on a criminal charge. If the policeman says to you, yes, you're under arrest for loitering, pissing in the street, whatever, then you show them ID. If you get arrested and they taking you to the police station, all you've got to say is yes, no, I don't recall. And that just happened to be the middle finger, which I didn't mean it that way. But that's what it is. I don't recall. This is a proven way to avoid getting yourself into trouble. How is it a proven way? Politicians have been doing it for years.
Yeah.
When they get up to commissions and all that kind of thing, politicians say, I don't recall. It has become accepted by the law that not everybody can remember everything. So I don't recall has become a loophole for everybody to get out. So no, yes, I don't recall. Which I didn't, I forgot. Alright? And don't resist. Alright? Do not resist. Just put your hands back there or wherever they want them, depending on how they've been trained, and let them take you away. Don't resist. And if you've got some friends around, get them to videotape it, for goodness sake. Yeah? Because little things can be done on that walk to the van that you need to have videotaped. Now, you may get issued a fine, or they might just let you go. Don't worry about the fine. The charges under the Emergency Act are illegal and will be thrown out by the judge if it gets to court. Even if they are successful, come back to me and we will use the knowledge that I'm trying to share with you here to ensure that you don't pay the fine. As I said earlier in the program, I haven't paid a fine for years. I haven't had many, but I haven't paid a fine. I don't deliberately go out and park up on the pavement just to get a fine. so I can fight it. But occasionally, you know, you go a little bit too fast or something. Another response, if the police keep throwing questions at you, is in the Supreme Court ruling of Regina versus Banner, you have no power to detain me for the purpose of facilitating an investigation. Am I under arrest? No. Then I will be on my way. Same thing. But if you learn these, what it does to the policeman, this is my experience, is it puts it back on me, and all of a sudden the plan you had for this person changes because you go, okay, this person knows shit. So if they're just trying to bait you, they'll let you go. If they want more, they'll keep questioning you. But stick to what you know. Don't start going on about all these other things that you've seen and heard of, etc., etc. Stick to the law. That's what policemen understand. All this other stuff to them is a bunch of long-haired hippies who should be kicked out onto some farm somewhere, okay? That's the way we think. I can say we because that used to be me. Alright? I understand what goes on in the mind of a policeman when they're arresting somebody, or when they're investigating somebody, questioning them, etc., etc. It's much more fun kicking down a door and talking to the first person you find because they're in a shop. You can get so much out of them. It's incredible. But anyway. Alright, stick to what is law. And as I said, in regards to ID, there is no requirement to carry ID unless you are in charge of a motor vehicle. And remember, if arrested, yes, no, and don't recall. Somebody said something different now. Who's that? Who was that?